The article I'm going to read from Governance, Risk, and Control Illustrated is Taking Time to Think, which is the biggest challenge, by Carol Switzer. When I talk to chief ethics and compliance officers and ask them what is their biggest challenge in doing their job well, often the answer is something like, I don't have time to take a step back, think, and strategize. Everyone is busy putting out fires and trying to prevent the next one. They know they need they know they need to step back and evaluate what is working and what isn't. But that task most often gets pushed to the bottom of the to-do list. This is further complicated by the very human desire to have completion of a task, to put something in place and then move on to the next urgent issue that must be addressed. While the CECO receives reports and may have some useful analytics about controls put in place to address regulatory obligations, it is virtually impossible to distill even that limited information and draw meaningful conclusions from it without the opportunity to really discuss and think about what it means. The level of understanding in many cases is merely shallow knowledge, as discussed by Daniel Willingham in his column entitled Ask the Cognitive Scientist, published in AFT, the American Federation of Teachers. In an installment entitled Students Remember What They Think About, in spring of 2003, Willingham explained that deep knowledge comes from understanding both the facts taught and the connections between those facts. Shallow knowledge, by contrast, understands both each isolated part, but lacks understanding of the deeper meaning found in the relationships between the information. Willingham writes, cognitive science has known that what ends up in a learner's memory is not simply the material presented, it is the product of what the learner thought about when he or she encountered the material. He notes that knowing facts without an integrated understanding of how they relate to each other results in a situation where the student has trees but no view of the forest. As I read this, I thought how it might apply in the context of gaining deeper understanding of the workings and failures of a typical compliance program. I pondered how easy it is for a CECO to be focused on information being reviewed for only one purpose and totally miss other, perhaps more important information that could be gleaned. I also thought about the difficulty of synthesizing large quantities of information and the challenge of finding patterns when they may not have been the initial reason for the review. Even with the best metrics and reports, the human mind can only handle so much information. Based on cognitive science, meaning that is out there waiting to be understood will be missed and won't end up in memory if the CECO only thinks about the material available in a shallow way. Thinking about the right things in a focused way is essential to developing deep knowledge and understanding. Having that deep knowledge is foundational to creative problem identification and solving. Without deep knowledge, we are prone to having a check that box attitude and continuing to do things the way we always have until something disastrous happens. Then, by the way, we do usually really focus and gain some deep knowledge just a little too late. So what is the answer? How can a CECO with limited resources, overtaxed staff, and too much raw data ever gain deep knowledge needed to continually improve the compliance capability he or she oversees? Perhaps the answer is to engage technology that can do some of the thinking for you. Cognitive, artificial intelligence systems available today can do the thinking that even the largest compliance team can't complete in a time frame that enables action. Cognitive compliance systems can evaluate and rank the importance of obligations based on the activities of the organization. and make recommendations on how to address them. But it doesn't stop there. As recommendations are accepted or altered by the staff, the system begins to learn preferences and adjust recommendations accordingly. A cognitive system can track both internal and external changes that might call for reconsideration of controls that make new suggestions. A cognitive system can scan dozens and hundreds of obligations from a range of regulations extremely quickly to identify similar ones and suggest common controls and identify relevant existing controls. This doesn't mean that we can stop thinking and let the technology do all the work. Far from it. What it does mean is that we can think more deeply about the things brought to our attention and develop a real understanding of our challenges and solutions. I suggest that it is time to do focused thinking and gain some deep knowledge about the tools that can help overcome the challenge of needing more time to just think. There's an infographic and a couple articles on cognitive GRC and cognitive compliance with cognitive computing. Probably have the time to read some. The transformative power of cognitive GRC is the infographic here. You see legislative and regulatory change contributing to, I'll say, a graph, which has maybe an orbit of analyzing trends. No, perhaps it starts with find relationships, and predict events, identify needs, define priorities, analyze trends. So that would be the orbit, but it's standing upon a base of insight-based adjustment, language, tone, pattern analytics, continuous monitoring and adaptation, and data aggregation and prioritization. Now, there's lots of things that also arrows pointing towards this orbit and platform, as you might refer to it, and that's business context, third parties, internal audit, risk management and compliance, which has two-way feedback, and then operations has two-way feedback as well. Operations includes finance, procurement, sales, and security. And what can cognitive technology do by way of regulatory change, operational risk, and vendor management? This is a bulleted list. In regulatory change, cognitive technology can continuously evaluate laws, regulations, judicial decisions, and proposals based on strategic and business need. 2, identify and classify regulatory requirements with recommendations to address compliance objectives. 3, recommend common control architecture for similar requirements across laws or jurisdictions. 4, facilitate mapping of regulatory requirements to establish business processes, risks, and controls. And last, provide insight into current and potential future regulatory exposures across multiple jurisdictions, sectors, and regulators. Under operational risk, we have 5 bullets. Continuously evaluate loss event data and complete a dynamic list of prioritized risks to manage. Transform and consolidate and structure data into actionable information. This is all operational risk. Analyze disparate data sources to determine veracity, highlight inconsistencies, and reveal patterns and trends. Prepare comparative analysis and possible operational changes to highlight areas of potential exposure, gaps, and opportunities. And last, create custom reports and notifications for different internal and external audiences. Under vendor management, there's track and analyze global events to understand impact on individual vendors and vendor ecosystem. Provide real-time alerts and notable vendor events such as bankruptcy, ownership change, and cyber incidents. Monitor security policies and information. Deliver customized reports for vendor relationships.